Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greeting food lovers out there, I'm Kelly Bass, and I have been ingrained in the Mid-South food culture my whole life. I've grown up going to restaurants, fell over in a high chair in a famous Little Rock restaurant when I was 18 months old, and I kind of planned my life meal by meal, and many of those are in the fabulous eateries of the Mid-South. So I am happy to be here with you today. Enjoyed my years of reviewing restaurants and happy to be the host of Heaping Spoonful. Today, it is my pleasure to visit with Mary Beth Ringgold about her amazing career. Those of you all who have been to Little Rock or know about the Little Rock dining scene know about all that she has done and still doing. So we look forward to talking about that. So Mary Beth, welcome to Heaping Spoonful.
Nice to be here today.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here. So growing up, did you ever think you were going to end up in the restaurant business? Was that something that was on your radar from the get-go or not?
Absolutely not. Matter of fact, I grew up in the restaurant business, and both of my grandfathers and my father were in the restaurant business. Very small mom and pops. I grew up in West Virginia, a very small town. And so, after school, I'd be washing dishes. On Sunday, I'd go in for $5, and I'd sweep the floors and clean everything. And I could just assure you that when I left for school, I had my little Chevy Chevette packed, and I was heading out. And I said, I want to promise you guys one thing. I will never, ever be in the restaurant business.
And so how did you find yourself in there?
Kind of a sad circumstance. I was going to school at UT, University of Tennessee, and Bruce Anderson had just built a Cajun's Wharf right on the banks of the Nayland River, or just down from the football stadium. And I think it was maybe 3 days old, and I got a call from my mother. So my father had a stroke. She said, I think you're going to have to go get a job, a part-time job, and make ends meet a little bit. And I was like, okay. So my roommate at the time said, there's a new place named Cajun's just opened down on the river. It's a great place, and my friend works at the appetizer kitchen there, and maybe he could get you an interview. Okay, so I walk in, I get the interview, hired right away, and that was the start of it.
And what was that being a waiter, or was that being in the kitchen, or what were you doing?
Actually, what I went to school for originally was banking and finance, and my goal was to be an attorney or perhaps a banker. I wasn't really sure yet, but so my position was what we called a cashier, which is really a bookkeeper, and it was pretty flexible hours. Worked with my school schedule, and I could come in and do it during the night or during the day or however it suited me for the most part. And so that's where I started, was in the back of the house.
Wow, that's cool. I can only imagine, knowing your history and decades working and owning or being a partner in Cajun's Wharf in Little Rock, that somehow that Knoxville experience got you down the road to Little Rock.
It did, because it was funny that you have to think back, and technology is advancing exponentially now. But back in the day, there was no technology. There were no cell phones. There was very few computers that point of sale systems that communicated with each other. So
right. And no internet.
Definitely no internet. So Bruce Anderson, in his wisdom, had brought in this big NCR system with the idea that these different cash registers could speak to each other. But it was kind of new technology, and they broke down all the time. When they did, it'd be a 20,000 square foot facility full of people, and also we don't have cash registers. So you had to learn how to fix them, and we had repair people there around the clock. It seemed like to me, and I said, guys, if you'll teach me how to do this, I'll fix them. And they were like, okay. So that's kind of how it started. And of this entire giant staff, I was the only one that really embraced this and said, if you call me, I live 10 minutes away, I'll come down and I'll fix you up. And so that was kind of my first, take a look at her, because, man, she's got something going on. So it's kind of a go-to. It was about, right, teach me something and I'll,
Differentiated yourself instead of the crowd. Now, did he already have Cajun's in Little Rock at this time?
Cajun's in Little Rock was the first.
Okay.
And then Cajun's in Nashville was the second. And then he had just put Cajun's in Knoxville in, which would be the early 80s.
Yeah. So what was your path from Knoxville to Little Rock, or were there stops in between?
No stops in between. I worked in Knoxville for, I guess, a year or so, and then they said, we'd really like to send you to Little Rock. And the thing is, it seemed like every couple of months they were giving me a raise, and I thought, this is so cool. I am making so much money. And Looking back, it was a sham. But they said, we could train you. We'll take you. We want you to learn our culture. Go to our seafood company. They had their own seafood company at the time. And we just like to train you up. And I was like, that sounds great. So I departed from school and said, it's worth taking a year off to go do some things and have some other opportunity. And so I did that. I went right to the kitchen, started in the dishwasher. Then I was how to set the fry line up, how to cook on the fry station, how to set saute up, how to cook,
Wow.
how to do the grill, how to run the kitchen, how to expedite the kitchen. And then then I was a kitchen manager, I was the bar manager, I was the dining room manager. I did all those things. And the next step really was a year and change later. They wanted me to go out to Shorty Smalls, which was originally when it opened, and I can't remember what year it was, maybe 78. It was open as a Little Cajuns.
I remember it, yeah.
Yeah. So in Rodney Parham, there was nothing out there. Just a little bit past Shorty's was farmland. And I remember one thing, the rent was astronomical for the time. It was like $6,000 a month.
Wow.
Back then, a Cajun's rent was just barely $6,000 a month.
And it's a lot bigger place.
It's 20,000 square feet. So anyway, they shipped me out there and said, you're going to be the GM, and we just struggled out there. Things never made a dime of profit ever. We feed it every month. I was like, well, let's go figure that out. And really, numbers were my strong suit. So what I did first was I did full inventory, set up inventory systems, and then I went back and I just, on a Sunday, started doing an extensive audit. Because I figured, the first place where you get killed is your top line. If you're not making a top line, it seemed like the place was busy. So what I detected was that the managers prior, and I don't know how many of them, I didn't go back that far, were, how in the Shorties there was a loft upstairs?
I remember it, yeah.
So he was just taking offline every night those revenues, maybe putting a few dollars of revenue on that line item. But once I figured that out by audit, I thought, this is going to be really pretty simple to start making a profit. You give them put all the top line on there, and you're collecting all the money. You'll do a lot better. So, and then I took the products and did some changing. I went from all boxed food like Fred's fried mozzarella sticks to all hand breading. We hand breaded all our shrimp, hand breaded our new mozzarella sticks.
So the quality went up.
Yeah. So it was a really perfect storm of good things happening. Control, inventories. No one was stealing the money anymore. And all of a sudden they go, oh my God, the first month we made a $500 profit. You'd have thought that I had just given them a new Cadillac. And then we were in double-digit profitability every month for like 18 months. And so then I had the princess crown. They were like, she's like the princess. So then the next phase happened, which they shipped me down to Cajuns to be the GM. But I was very young still. I don't think I was 23 yet.
Wow.
So.
And that was the hoppin' place in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. At one time, and I think this is probably very early, mid-70s or before the 80s anyway, it was like one of the top, it was for several years in the top 100, but for 1 year it was in the top 10 grossing restaurants in the United States.
In the United States,
yeah.
No. And anybody who's been to Little Rock or knew Little Rock through, even until recently, Cajuns was the spot. It was big, and the food was really good, and it was on the river and had a great deck, and was just a great time altogether. And I would think, so for those who don't know the history, so you were there, and after the Anderson sold it, you were a partner in the business itself, and then sold the Landry's, and then bought it back later. But the responsibility of running Cajuns, one of the most iconic restaurants in the state, there had to be a little bit of pressure. You're shepherding a legendary plot. So did that ever really sink in, or were you just too much in the weeds and running the business to ever step back and go, wow, this is really a big deal?
I don't ever step back and go, wow, this is a big deal. You're always just kind of in the minute. You're always in the future. What's the future going to bring? Or how do you build a better mousetrap? Those words probably come out of my mouth many times a day. Just trying to always perfect what you do. But I felt like I was birthed there practically. So it wasn't intimidating to me. It was just very process focused, very procedure focused. I had the good fortune when Bruce Anderson sold the restaurant in, what was that, 86. Mike Wharf, out of Memphis, Tennessee, who actually was originally from Hot Springs, purchased it from Bruce. Bruce, I could tell you a zillion funny stories about him, but he was the poster child of who not to become. So when you think about your mentors, he was kind of like more a tormentor. But in any event, but when Mike came on board, he was fantastic, and he was truly one of my first great mentors. And he had been in the Navy on an aircraft carrier in charge of all the food service. So he's feeding 3,000 people 3 meals a day. So I'm thinking 9,000 meals a day this guy can get accomplished. And he really helped me learn about how to develop process and procedure and just consistencies and things that we kind of shot from the hip in the Bruce Anderson days. But so that was a really fortunate time. And then he very shortly thereafter made me a minority partner, and then we sold the Landry's, and that was in '93.
Right.
So.
And so we don't have to go chronologically necessarily. So you reacquired Cajuns in '99.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then only recently, and we're in September of 2019 for those out in podcast land. So just a couple of 3-4 months ago, you made the decision you and your partners to close it.
The decision was made probably close to a year ago. So I'm facing the last 5 years of a lease, and it was not a favorable lease at all. And so what I thought about a year before the decision was, I got to get this figured out, because what we were having, just the consumer, it's a different consumer now. And I could talk about that for about 6 hours. But I spent close to a year researching about the consumer. I thought the consumer was going to go, the trends, where we are, where I think they might go. So I had that battling, and just a snippet of that. Right now, third-party delivery companies are doing about $13.5 billion a year, tracking to do $22.5 billion by 2020, actually $24.5 billion by 2022. So the idea of people consuming in a different way, sitting on their couch with their convenience, with their tablets and their devices, we're with that right now. We're in the moment living that. So
right.
Big box special destination restaurants are not where the smart money is. So here I'm looking at that as a trend, and then the thing's 45 years old. It's 20,000 square feet. It costs a fortune to keep it, maintained, and
the air conditioning going.
Oh my gosh! I mean, air conditioner's down. Okay, that's $12,500. Just
yeah.
book it. Ice machine's down. Okay, that's $8,000. Everything in real big dollars, and so I had to make the choice. So the first thing is, well, the smart money would be, let's sell it to somebody. So I did a research project on the top 50 growth companies in the United States and drilled that down to about the top 12 who could potentially have an appetite for something so large. And I did a presentation for each one of those 12 and kind of geared towards the optimum for us would be if they wanted to acquire the brand, the recipes, the menus, and just bring in if they're a multi-brand concept. If not, it could have been someone that wanted to bring their brand and just could utilize the facility the way it was set up. It's riverfront property. You could have a brew place on one side, a restaurant on the other. You could do fine dine on one, casual dine on the other. So I pitched a lot of different things to different people until the sad realization happened that there was no one with an appetite for it. And
right.
the big money, big folks, they were looking at Dubai and Saudi Arabia. They weren't looking at Little Rock, Arkansas. So then I thought, well, the sad answer is the future is to shut it down. And then it was just like, how do you do it? I've never shut one down before. And then just the torment of what to do with your work family.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of employees. So that's sort of that part of that, how we got to that decision.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. And then I know, of course, and those who are familiar with the Little Rock restaurant scene, that you branched out even before you reacquired Cajuns. You all started Capers, out, which was way farther west Little Rock then than it feels now.
I tell you, Capers was a joy, and if something, when I got involved in Cajuns, it was there and established, the menus and the recipes, and all I could do was bring my piece of it, which is management, and technique, and cost control, and the things I did well. But with Capers, it was absolutely, now the building was there, and it's a beautiful, right now it's probably an 80-year-old building, frankly. And you wouldn't think you could even put a restaurant there. But we had to do every single thing we did from scratch, from the beginning, develop the menu, develop the recipes, and we did it on a shoestring. And if I told you how much money that we created that thing originally for, now we put a lot of money into it since, but you'd think, oh my gosh, couldn't do that in today's time.
Yeah, well, it's a fabulous spot. And then of course, those who again, know the Little Rock dining scene, know about Copper Grill, which is in the first floor of 303rd, one of the condo towers, and just off the River Market in downtown Little Rock, and is probably, to me, the see and be seen lunch place. You'll never know who you'll see, politicians, business icons in that restaurant. Again, an opportunity arose for you all to be the restaurant in that condo tower. Is that how that just kind of came to you, or how did that work out?
Over the years, Jimmy Moses and Rhett Tucker had always kind of asked me if I would partner with them in different things, and particularly in the River Market. And, I had my hands kind of full, and 2 restaurants was plenty. And Cajun's like running 9 places, so it was not like that was just, I just got a couple places. But that one had an interest, and I'll tell you, I probably learned more from that experience than anything in my entire life. And so that's how they kind of wooed me into that, and we had that opportunity. But we had to make that decision in 2005 for 2007 shovel in the ground.
Right.
So,
and we all know what sort of happened in 2008 with the economy and the housing market, and those are high-end condos and all that. But here we are, all this more than a decade later, and you're still rocking right along.
Man, I'm tenacious. You can't kill me.
No, it's great. Well, I'm glad we've been able to give the listeners some landscape on your career and where you've been. So let's just take a quick break, and we'll come back in just a couple of minutes here on Heaping Spoonful.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're having a great time talking with Mary Beth Ringgold, one of the legends of the Little Rock, Arkansas restaurant scene. And I want to go straight to this one because people in Little Rock who know you consider you a restaurateur. You've owned restaurants, you run restaurants, but you're a chef. And you're not just a chef, but you're the back-to-back winner, and which made you have to retire from competition of the Diamond Chef competition at UA Pulaski Tech Culinary School. So how did you decide to enter? Did winning surprise you, or did you always know you were a superstar in the kitchen, but really were known more running restaurants?
Let's work backwards. Winning, yes, it definitely surprised me. How it happened was just, I have this nature, it's kind of my mantra. If someone asks me to do something, I say yes, and I'll figure out how to do it.
That's why you're here today, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know. But I just don't say no to people. And when someone asks you something, I have to go, they have a value, and you should say yes to it. So my Todd Gold calls me one afternoon, and he said, I need a favor. And I was like, sure, what do you need? He goes, well, I'm going to come see you. That's never good. When they just can't ask you the favor over the phone, you know it's going to be deep. So he came, and he said, I just really want you to compete in Diamond Chef. And I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, God, that's not what I do every day. I don't throw an apron on and go down in the kitchen and, I push paper. I make sure that I run an organization. I said, I'm kind of handy in the kitchen, and, I cook and I make recipes and do creative, but I said, it's not what I do every day. These guys are doing that. They're like 30 years younger than I am, and they do this every day, and they live it and breathe it. And I said, I just don't want to embarrass my team. And he's like, please do it. I said, so what this tells me is you just need diversity. You need to get like an old person that's about ready to cash out, and that'd be really funny. Because I am funny. I'm very humorous. So I thought, well, he just needs some humor involved. And so anyway, I decided I would do it because he was just, please do it. I was like, okay. So that's how I got into it.
Cool. And Todd Gold, for those who don't know, is the dean of the culinary school at UA Pulaski Tech.
Yeah, and he is a superstar, and I love him. And so when he asks questions, you just can't refuse him.
And then you won.
The Godfather.
And then you won.
Well, there's some things that age will bring you, and that is planning is one, and we do a lot of catering, so being able to execute on your feet when you're in an off-site area when you don't know what your equipment is, or you get a lot of surprises. Those are things that I have in my toolbox, and so I think that helps. And plus, I have a superstar second line chef, who's a guy Franco, who works for us, and he is the fastest and very, very productive. And he and I, we cater together a lot. We do a lot of personal dinners, and so we have our chi, and so that has a lot to do with it. And then they assign you a third chef from the school, and you really don't know what their skill level is or whether they specialize in savory or sweet. Just try to find things that you think they can do and execute. But
yeah, well, congratulations. I think everybody was super happy that you won, and then again that you won the next year too, and then you retire undefeated, which is something not many people in any profession or sport get to say that they do. So, kind of a big open-ended question: can you pinpoint any moments in your restaurant career that you would call big breaks, and kind of how they helped you and helped your? And you might have already talked about some of those big breaks.
I think a pivotal point was when Mike Warren, I mentioned he purchased Cajuns. He immediately treated me like I was a superstar, like I was a piece of clay, and he wanted to spend some time and effort molding that clay. And then when he made me a partner, that enabled me to see things from a different perspective and kind of learn the more outside focused pieces of, we might do a lease contract or things that I wouldn't have an opportunity to do if I was just a general manager. So I think that was a big break. I took a little bit of a hiatus from the restaurant business and did some work in Russia, and I think that was kind of pivotal in letting me see the world from a different way. And then when I got back, I just wanted more than anything to assemble people that I wanted to work with every day and like the people that I was arm in arm with. And I didn't have to make a lot of money, and it's a good thing that was not a goal because things didn't quite turn out that way. But that was the most important thing. If I could articulate it, I'd say I want to wake up every day and love the people that I work with and do something meaningful and enhance people's lives. And that's been, I would have to call that everything we've done in the success category.
Yeah, and that's great. And you started, one of the early points in this conversation was a very sad phone call to find out that your father had had a stroke, led you to have to go find a job, and you found a job at Bruce Anderson's restaurant. So even out of a terrible situation, ended up coming out something that ended up being a defining part of your life, which is you never know where those turns are going to take you. What are the best decisions you've made along the way in your career?
I think purchasing land, the Cajuns back from Landers, was a good decision. It was a great time. I mean, the economy was on an uptick. We got it because they just really needed to vacate, needed a strategy to get out. So we didn't pay a whole lot of money to purchase it, but we put $1.5 million into it, so that's significant. But that enabled our whole company and everybody in it to have an opportunity and to grow. And it's big. You can't dispute the fact that it's a big operation. Sure, and it literally gives you the ability of running multiple companies within a company. And so I think we all had a lot of growth from doing that. And being a multi-unit operator, I mean, you have to develop a lot of skills. So luckily, and I guess the other thing I put in the success category is I've developed a lot of skills in the last 25 years. So yeah. I feel good about that.
That's super cool. And you've, again, kind of covered some of these, but what are some of the principles that have helped your restaurants be successful? I mean, you've already talked about surrounding yourself with good people, but are there other things that you've kind of just said, these are my tenets of how I operate a restaurant?
I think number one is you have to operate a business with integrity. I mean, the people in the community need to trust you. That's by far the number one thing. Then I think in our scenario, what was most important to me is just our people, to make sure that we did right by our employees, that they felt like we were fair, that we developed a culture where the employees liked coming to work and felt like no matter what their struggle was, we would be there with them. And then the final thing, and probably the most important thing of actually a restaurant versus just how to run a company, is you have to decide what you're willing to do on food. And there's a lot of food out there, and there's been a lot of chemical enhancements that's happened over the years. It's just, pardon the word, but bastardized our food supply. And it's evident if you go to the grocery store. You might pick up a ham. It says ham and water product. It's chock full of sodium tripolyphosphate, chemical, and things that make a protein water adhere to it. And it's value for the producer, but you're just putting this crap in your body. So our feeling has always been buy the best of the best of the best. And not to do a commercial, but one of the reasons we partnered with Benny Keith is they were willing to do that for us. They're bringing very specific products, put our name on them, sell them to us, make sure they didn't run out. and we always could trust what was coming in the back door was exactly what we specified. So that's so that, I guess, if I want to hang my hat on something on the food side, it is that what comes in our back door is the best of the best of the best.
Yeah, which is great. So what advice would you give someone who's considering opening a restaurant? And again, don't do it is really not what I'm looking for here.
That comes to mind. So I would tell them, you really have to have a sense of business. Just the fact that you can cook does not necessarily mean you're going to be successful in a restaurant. The other thing is, you can't live out of the restaurant. You can't say, oh my gosh, I had a great night, and take a bunch of money out. You have got to force savings, because there are many economic times over the years that have been ebb and flow, and if we've not been conservative and had savings, we might have not have survived. So that's important. So if you're not a good business person, and that's not your forte, and you don't know how to run costs and cost analysis and that type of thing, then you need someone in your organization who can do that. Then the number one thing there is you have to be able to trust that person, because if you're not looking at the numbers and only one person is, and you don't have oversight over it, they could take you to
Sure.
cleaners. So then the other thing I would say, and probably one of my better personal successes, is pick your partners for the right reasons. Two of my partners are my best friends, and my other is my sister. So we have a hierarchy of how we do things. I run the organization, and I try to get consensus on everything we do, but should there be a time when we can't agree on the consensus, then I'll make the decision and try to make it happen for the best. But so there is an obvious leadership hierarchy, but at the end of the day, I would fall in a grenade for any of those people, and I feel they feel the same for me, and it's helped us enjoy what we do more.
Well, one thing that I've noticed about restaurants that are successful is the folks who own them and operate them are visible. And I've seen you in your restaurants. I've seen you at your caterings, and you've developed relationships with your customers over the years. Is that something that just comes naturally, or did you make a decision, I'm going to be visible?
It's super important. And when I got up to 3 restaurants, it was my biggest disappointment. It's like I couldn't zip myself out and be 3 different places at one time. So I just try to be where I think I need to be, where I can put the most value in. Funny about that part, I'm not really a gregarious person. I'm a very private, quiet person. I don't have really any ego at all. I know people may not believe that, but you develop the skill because it's important, because people want to see your face, and you're the face of the brand, and somehow you go, you know what, that's important. It's like a ball player who treats the people bad,
Right.
I can name a couple, but I won't. But I don't ever want to be that person. But I mean, like your mother would tell you, people don't always remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Exactly.
And
right.
So hospitality is in my nature, and it's easy for me to go make people feel good when they're in my house.
Well, I'll tell you, when again, this has been one of your longtime customers, both on the catering and restaurant side. When I see you there, I know everything's going to be okay. I mean, I kind of know everything's going to be okay anyway. But when I see you there, I was like, wow, she cares about this job, and she cares about what's going on, and it matters. So I'm glad that you do that. Let's end on a couple of just kind of off the wall questions. Who is the most famous person to eat in one of your restaurants, and kind of tell me how that went?
It's Bob Hope.
Bob Hope, that's cool.
I mean, I grew up loving Bob Hope. Bob
We all
Hope
did.
was on our family television. Back when we only had 3 channels,
Yeah.
So, and I was a remote control. Turn to 3, turn to 7.
Yeah.
But when he came in the door, he was with Sam Walton. And it's back when Walmart used to have
Was that
big
at Cajun's?
conventions in Little Rock at Cajun's. Yeah.
Wow.
I thought I was going to have a stroke. Because we didn't have cell phones, but I called my mother immediately. And the funniest thing when I look back on it, why did I not pick up their dinner? But I didn't. And Bob Hope paid with an old cracked up giant, maybe the first Visa card that ever came out on planet Earth, and he paid with that. And
My question is, why was Sam not paying?
I don't know. Maybe
I've heard he was a little cheap.
Maybe they flipped the coin or something. But,
Oh, that's so cool.
But I just couldn't. One of my rules is not to go spend a lot of time with people. They come to the restaurants to eat and to socialize. I think they like to see me for a minute, but I don't sit at their tables. And so, but those guys are like, I just got to talk to y'all for just a minute. That was a high point.
I don't know that many people are going to top it if I keep asking that question. That's good. Is any crazy stuff ever happened in one of your restaurants that's something you can talk about? I mean, y'all had any weird incidents go on, or any kind of crazy things happen?
So, just a funny human story. This has been many years ago, but a lady a family brought their mother in who was probably in her 80s, and she got kind of overheated, and she ended up throwing up into like a doggy bag, back when they had the old foil doggy bags.
Right.
Well, the lady gets home and she calls back and she goes, my mother's lost her teeth again, and is there any way it would still be there? And I'm like, God, we've been through bus tub after bus tub, and we've got 3 big dumpsters out back, and the bus tubs go to trash barrels go to the trash. And so anyway, long story short, I said, ma'am, I don't think so, but let me get your number and I'll call you back. Well, I went through the bus tubs that were still remaining. I went through the trash barrel, and then I just jumped in the dumpster with a rake and a shovel, and I found this doggy bag and opened it up and went, oh, and then I brought it in and ran it through the dishwasher and called the lady back and saved the teeth. So I thought not everybody can do that story.
Well, that's going above and beyond the customer service norms, so that's great. Well, listen, this has been a fabulous talk. I appreciate you greatly. I look forward to dining with you soon, and I encourage anybody and everybody who comes to Little Rock, Arkansas to check out Copper Grill and Capers. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another